Hello everyone, today we are going to learn about a really interesting concept in Java, which is anonymous objects. Before we talk about anonymous objects, let's quickly recap how regular object creation works. So first let me write two variables, int a equal 4 and semicolon, and b equal 5 semicolon. And how do we create a regular method? Access modifier, public, data type integer, and the name of the method, whatever you like to write. For example, I write display details and curly braces. Because it has a return type, data type, we should write the return keyword and what we want to be returned, a plus, b, and semicolon. Now let's write a regular object. How do we create a regular object? I copy the name of the class. Then I choose a name for the reference variable, st equal new keyword, the name of the class, parentheses, and semicolon. And how I can call or print the value of the method, system.out.println, semicolon. Inside the parentheses I write the name of the reference variable, state.operator, and display the name of the method. Print. So let me run the program. Yeah, the value is 9 because 4 plus 5 is 9. Two things happen here. First, new student and parentheses creates an actual student object in the heap memory. I hope you can remember this concept because we have covered in our previous lesson. So this object contains all the variables and methods of the student class, and it has a unique memory address. Let's say something like 103. And second, st, which is the reference variable created in the stack memory. We have covered this concept in the previous lessons as well. In the stack memory, it stores the address of the object, which is 103. So st is simply pointing to the object in the heap. When you call st.display details parentheses, Java uses the address stored in st to find the object in the heap and call the method. You can also split object creation into two separate steps. Let me write it to make it clear, easier to understand. Step 1, declare reference variable in the stack. So how we can declare a reference variable in the stack? I think I have made a mistake here. So we simply write the name of the class, which is student, and the name of the reference variable. We just declare the reference variable. So we don't assign any value, just we press semicolon. So now let's go for step number 2. Step number 2. In step number 2, we create object in heap and assign address to the reference variable or st. For example, we write st equal new, the name of the class, student, parentheses, and semicolon. Okay, because the names are similar here, we get an error. Let me cut it from here, paste it in here. Yeah. Sorry for the confusion because I choose the same name for our object or reference variables, so I got an error. So in step number 2, we created object in heap and assigned address to st, right? Both approaches create the same result. Either you write in one line, either you write in two separate lines. So a reference variable in the stack in both ways is pointing to an object in the heap. So now here is the interesting part. What if you create an object without assigning it to a reference variable? I mean, there should not be any reference variable like st. But exactly what an anonymous object is. So let me just comment this part. For example, what if we just write new student, parentheses, and semicolon, without creating a reference variable? Just this one line, no reference variable, no name, nothing. This object is created directly in the heap, but nobody is pointing to it. The word anonymous means nameless or without name. And that is exactly what this object is, a nameless object with no reference. You can also call a method directly on an anonymous object right the moment of creation. For example, we were calling our method by writing st.display, the name of the method. Now let's just do something like this, system.out.println semicolon. Now what if we do not write any reference variable and directly just call the method with an anonymous object dot operator and display the name of the method? Okay, let me run the program. Yeah, we got the same result, 9. This creates a student object in the heap, calls the display details method immediately, and that is it. The object is used once and becomes available for garbage collection. Let's compare the two side by side to make the difference clear. Regular object, which we have in here, first we call it with a reference variable, and then we can reuse the same object again and again. Let me comment this part and come here back to our first regular object. Okay, we call it first time. Now let's call it again, reuse it. Let's reuse it again. Let me run the program. Yeah, as you can see, with a regular object, you have a reference variable like st that keeps pointing to the object again and again, and you can use it as many times as you want. But for the anonymous object, you can only use once. Let me write it again. Now let's come back to this one, to the anonymous object. Okay, for the anonymous object, we use this one once. Let's reuse this one. So for the anonymous object, we use only once, and we created a new object, a very new, completely new object again. So with an anonymous object, each line creates a brand new object, calls the method once, and the object cannot be used again because there is no reference variables pointing it. The key difference is simple. Regular object has a reference, can be reused multiple times. Anonymous object, no reference, used only once, immediately after creation. So anonymous objects are perfect in situations where you only need to call a method once, and you do not need to keep the object around for later use. You want, for example, cleaner and more concise code instead of declaring a reference variable that you will never use again. For example, imagine you want to display a welcome message once. The anonymous version is shorter and makes it clear that this object is only needed for this one operation. So anonymous objects are also commonly used when passing objects directly as arguments to methods without needing to store them in a variable first. And that is the anonymous objects in Java. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe the channel. Never miss a video. See you in the next one.